We are so honored to have Yotam Ottolenghi here, who is coming to Minnesota very, very soon this May for a good chat at the Temple Israel Synagogue. And we are so excited that we got to have an advanced chat and really talk to one of the cookbook authors that we admire on the show quite a bit. So thank you for joining us all the way from London, right? That's where you are right now?
Yeah, thanks, Stephanie. Yeah, I'm in London, and it's a beautiful sunny day. It's great to be on your show.
Oh, wonderful.
I pulled my cookbooks out just to stack them up for you because we legitimately are big fans.
I can see it. He's on top of our mind. I recognize them. Yeah.
Right. I was thinking about your bio just a little bit, and you are so multicultural because you were born in Israel, you have restaurants in London, you spent summers in Italy. It's very clear when you think about the perspective of your food that it's very worldly.
Yeah, that's right. And I've got nothing to do with it. I'm just lucky because
you're just along for the ride.
Yeah, because I grew up in Jerusalem, and my parents were both of Jewish European ancestry. My mother was from a German background. My father was Italian. And Jerusalem itself was such a microcosmos of cuisines. You know, there was lots of Jewish diaspora coming from North Africa and the Middle East and Eastern Europe and other parts of the world. And then there was Palestinian food, which is such a rich food culture that is so dominant and wonderful. And all these influences really, made my palate. So I had. My dad used to make incredible polentas, that was his obsession for the Northern Italian food, delicious. But also there was the baba ganoush and falafel and the salads and all the delicious Arab food that was around. So I really got to taste a lot of delicious things. And this is why I think I'm a little bit lacking in one particular culinary culture. I kind of dabble in all sorts of things because I just know that you get so much of it, and I don't feel like committed to one particular food culture. I've had the benefit of tasting all of them, and they're all pretty good.
That might be your superpower, though. I think,
And you're also a French pastry chef, which you went to school for pastry.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't say these days that I'm a French chef because I'll probably fail all those exams, and I would definitely not go on Bake Off, but. But I went to the Cordon Bleu, and I did courses in both savory and patisserie, and then I worked as a pastry chef for a couple of years in restaurants. So I had that training, and I love making cakes and baking still. Yeah, but I wouldn't put it to a professional test these days. No.
So I did see, I was looking around on the webs, and I found you're writing for the New York Times Magazine. You have a column starting in the magazine, and I have to just read this part because this was so perfect for us. You say, I'll start my first column on the pages of this magazine with an uncomfortable confession. I eat everything. I am greedy. I love to eat. So yes, I eat everything. Not literally. I won't consume any food, obviously not, but there isn't a kind of dish that I don't like by definition. And I love that because that's literally between this Stephanie and my Stephanie-ness. That's kind of our ethos as well, is that it doesn't, you can like something that is pedestrian and you can like something that is super highly refined.
Yeah.
And yet, and for some reason, some people try to polarize you that way, but you're kind of admitting that it's okay to like both.
Yeah, totally. When I get on an airplane and I get these trays that makes your heart sink sometimes because you think, how long has that been sitting there, at the safe temperature and all the rest, and you think oh gosh. But I open it and I find things to be cheerful about. Sometimes there's this yogurt that's actually quite good to eat, or there's a piece of cake that I kind of like. And that's the point that I tried to make in the article, is that if you are a naturally greedy person, you kind of like anything, then you would find situations in which effort has gone into the cooking or manufacturing of something delicious, then you're okay with that. And we just celebrated Easter, and even in the Easter eggs department, there's the posh Easter eggs and there's this cheap ones, and I get the joy out of both. So my kids are really annoyed because I eat their Easter eggs as well as the grown-up mine, and it's not good.
No.
It's funny because I like institutional food and I don't know why. I don't know if it's like the comfort, other than really a hospital, that food is really the worst. But
Well, he
again, on
writes
an
about how his dad loves, like his dad was dipping into the green jello at the hospital, and it was like, okay. But if you can appreciate it and you find a thing to appreciate in it, and there's an effort, I love the fact that it's about the effort, right? That somebody
Yeah,
intentionally did something, and
about the
that's worth
effort. Yeah,
celebrating.
yeah. That's
So
right.
Stephanie's a magazine writer. You're now a magazine writer and obviously have contributed a lot to the writing space. Is it hard for you to write versus cook? Like, is one more challenging than the other?
The way my life has really changed. My professional life has changed over the years. So I used to spend almost all my time cooking. First of all, when we started in restaurants, and then when we started our delis and restaurants, I used to spend the first few years I was in the kitchen all the time. And then gradually I shifted from the cooking to writing. And these days I do much more writing than actual cooking because I've got a test kitchen.
Yeah.
Last year we brought out a book, and there's another one coming this year, which are the OTK, the Ottolenghi Test Kitchen. Yeah, they're really good. They're like books they're recipe books, but they focus on particular subjects or skills that we're trying to get people to know or to learn. And the one that's coming out this year is all about little condiments that you can create while you're cooking. So, a sprinkle or chili oil or a pickle or something. So you make a meal, and it has an element in it that you can double and put in a jar, and then it will be the beginning of your next meal, like you put it on your eggs or potatoes or whatever it is the next day that you're cooking. So these days it's a group of people testing recipes, and I'm kind of maybe the conductor. So I spend much less time actually cooking and much more time thinking and writing. And what I find I guess the challenges now come from writing. So when I wrote the piece for the New York Times Magazine, the first column in the magazine, I've been writing for the Times for years, but now my column moved to the magazine. I spent a good 4 or 5 days just kind of trying to get it right. What is the message? What is it that I'm trying to tell? And that was a challenge. So in a way, those are the challenges. The challenges that I'm dealing with now are more about writing and a bit less of the cooking, although that happens too.
So when the pandemic obviously was something that we all went through and everybody had to face as a restaurant owner, that was a particularly tough moment, obviously. But then there's something to say about the way that your cooking and the food, your food voice, which reaches around the world, really, I think, spoke to a lot of people and really kind of healed them as far as bringing people together, really thinking about intentionally eating, different kinds of foods, and especially the vegetable focus. I think a lot of people really sought that out and sought different things than they were maybe used to because they were kind of stuck at home a little bit. How did the pandemic change you necessarily?
It's a really good question, because in some ways it has done a tremendous change, because, like so many other, I've got 2 young kids, and my husband and I spent our first 3-4 months of lockdown really cooking 3 times a day. And that was something that we all shared. The rest of the world was doing the same. And as much as you are well versed in the world of food and know recipes and know ingredients, it can become quite tricky, to produce 3 meals a day. It takes time, it takes effort, we also didn't have all those ingredients to hand. It was hard to get yeast, and it was hard to get pasta. There were certain things you just couldn't get. At certain points, it shifted and changed all the time, but it made me much more frugal in the way I cook. Like the amount of bread puddings that we had, just because I didn't want to throw even one bit of stale bread to the bin because there was just not enough, was crazy. Savory bread puddings and sweet bread puddings, and then like all sorts of like frittatas with bread, etc. Just don't throw out any bread.
No.
But it's a real good life skill, isn't it? The idea that you don't throw stuff away, that there's so many extra uses to certain things. So that was one thing that was really useful. But the other was all about, and that goes back to what I was talking about, the next book, the Ottolenghi Test Kitchen. We call it Extra Good Things, is those condiments that really help you. So when you cook one meal, you kind of almost like take the first step to creating the other meals. And it's really useful with kids because, like, for instance, a pickle or chili sauce or a sprinkle is really something that the adults could add to their food while the kids eat something simpler. Because my boys are quite good eaters, but they don't like, highly spiced food. So if I make rice, or if I make polenta, or if I make couscous or whatever it is, I would make a plain version or a simpler version for them. And then we can have all the extra good things, the delicious things that they don't want to eat. So that was another take out from the pandemic.
If we opened up your refrigerator right now, would it be overflowing with condiments and jars full of little bits and things?
It has, yeah. So I would always have a few pickles. I would always have some oils, flavored oils, or pastes, from vegetable paste, so there's always something there to be had. We always have preserved lemons in one form or another, whether they're whole or sliced or pulverized into a slush with olive oil on top. So there's a whole bunch of things that I have there, and they come in really useful, like a green chili sauce, like a shata, which is a Palestinian green chili condiment. It's really just fermented chilies, but it just elevates so many dishes that I would cook, like bulgur wheat with lentils and fried onion. If I make that's quite simple. I put that chili sauce on top. It's just 100 times better.
Your book really did, for me, like, you have so much layer of texture in every dish that I really didn't think about as a home cook, but there's always like an herb or something fresh, and there's always something crispy. And, I've made a lot of your frittatas and bread puddings and all those things with the breads, because I'm like you, I have 2 freezers and I can throw nothing out. No. But I really found inspiration in the way that the dish isn't just the grain, it's kind of layered, if that makes sense. And I think that's why I like your book so much.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I think the layering is something that now comes quite instinctively to me, because when we started our business 20 years ago this year, Ottolenghi, we serve food to go. We call them delis. I mean, they're not delis in the American sense of the word deli. It's more like cafes.
Yeah, like takeaways. Yep.
Yeah, but there's food to go, but it's presented really beautifully on big platters. And one of the things that we realized when we started, me and my partners, is that the better the food looks, the more likely that people will buy it. That's just the way of the world. Every market stall holder knows that if they shine their apples, they're going to sell more apples, right? But the same applies to salads and vegetables. The more beautiful the salad looks, the more you're going to sell of it. And the layering is a kind of a lesson that you learn from the way you present a salad. So if you just have, like, let's say we're talking about mushed butter beans, like a hummus type dish with butter beans, you can easily just put it out there, but it's not going to be very attractive. But if you create 2 texture, one of the beans that are completely mushed and the other one where they're a little bit kind of rough, and then on top of that you put a drizzle of yogurt, and then you'd have a sprinkle of sesame seeds with nigella seeds and a chili, and then maybe something green. You get these kind of layering. It translates into flavor in the mouth and textures, but it's also visually really very attractive. So people buy it. So it's now I always think about these layers when I put a dish on a plate. Is that quite enough? And that is really, really effective way of presenting food and feeding people.
It makes your books beautiful, by the way. I mean, really they're gorgeous.
How do you split your time between restaurants and books, and then doing, like, you're flying to the United States, and then, I mean, parenting 2 kids? How does it all work?
So, in a way, there's everybody says it's a group effort about what they do, but in my case, it really is. There's a lot of people involved in the business. I have a very little day-to-day responsibility about what happens in the restaurant. There's head chefs, and they're very creative themselves, and they know what they're doing, and managers, and in a way, we're kind of a mature business in the sense that we've learned from our experience how to do things better. So I split my time quite evenly between everything that I need to do, but it really is always a group. And all my books these days are collaborations. I never publish books that are just mine since the last 4 or 5 books. And I always am quite open about how much it is not about myself, even though it says Ottolenghi. It's really about the people that work, and my particular collaborator on each book has a huge influence on what the book ends up. Sami Tamimi and I published Jerusalem and the Ottolenghi cookbook in the past, and then I published a baking book with Helen Go a few years ago, and last book I published before the Test Kitchen books was called Flavor, and I published it with Easter Belfridge, who's an incredible cook herself. So there's always someone who collaborates, and they bring a lot of freshness into the books, which is really important, I find.
Doesn't it also kind of stress you out though, because you're this empire now, and like we had this pandemic and all these people probably relied on you and, you know, your team for their livelihood? That would stress me out at night.
Oh, it stressed me out very much, both in the daytime and at nighttime, like all the time.
All the time.
Yeah, no, it was an awful period. I think we kind of laugh about it now, but if you spoke to me in April or May 2020, I was literally losing sleep all the time about the future of our business. We had many employees, and I didn't want, you know, I wanted all of them to be paid at the end of the month, and I wanted our business to continue, and it didn't seem like I could take it for granted at that particular point that we're going to be in that particular position within a few months. Even it was just, we were very lucky because we had a very great, very generous government scheme in Britain, furlough, where everybody essentially got paid even when they were not working. So we had to it still wasn't simple to deal with because there was other expenses, you know, rents, etc. But at least that helped. And once we started having these kind of opening ups of the economy, we realized that probably we will survive it, but at some point it was very, very, very stressful.
Have you been to Minnesota before? Have you come?
No.
Oh,
This would be my first visit to Minnesota.
wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Do you have expectations? Do you have feeling?
No, I don't know enough to, but I'm really excited to come. And I had an interview with a colleague of yours from Minneapolis the other day, and she recommended a really good Vietnamese restaurant that I'm going to go and check out on my visit there. I've ticked it already, so I'm going to be there. It's called Hey Hey.
Oh yeah, hi. Yep.
Hi.
Yep.
Sorry, hi.
Yeah.
And,
That's a great spot.
So I'm going to go there, and so I'm looking forward to trying lots of food. I think I've got 2 nights, so that covers 1 night. If you want to give me a recommendation for the other one or for a lunch, I'd be happy to hear.
Okay, what do you think, Hanson? Where would you send?
Well, I mean, do we need
And
him
I don't
to
like formal restaurants.
I was going to say, do we need to send him to a dive bar to eat a Juicy Lucy burger?
You eat hamburgers?
Yeah. No, you see, this is like, that's how we started. You know, I'm not picky. I like everything. So,
you should probably go to Matt's bar and eat a Juicy Lucy hamburger, which is a hamburger.
No, I'm writing as we speak.
Good.
Okay.
I'll send it to Clodagh too. I'll send her a link so that
Max Bar?
Matt, M-A-T-T, Matt Bar.
Max Bar, Juicy Lucy hamburger. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Obama went there, so if he went there, I think you should go there too.
Yeah, totally. I go wherever he goes.
Wherever he goes.
Me too.
Oh wow, I love this.
Juicy Lucy hamburger. Okay, I'm definitely going there. Cool.
Okay. All right.
Stephanie, the Juicy Lucy is like 2 patties that are surrounded by a ball of cheese inside that when you bite into the burger, they warn you because you don't want to burn your lip or your tongue.
Yeah, the cheese is not on the burger. The cheese is in the burger.
In the burger. Okay. Yeah. It's a bit like these, what are they called? The Chinese dumplings that are full of
like soup dumplings.
Like a soup dumpling.
Yeah. Okay. The Minnesota equivalent of the char siu soup dumpling.
Yes, good. Then you will be careful. You know the drill. This is wonderful. Well, so what's next? You said your OTK is coming up next. As far as like your 5-year plan, I know it's hard to look forward so far, it seems like these days, but you know, is it more books? Is it multimedia? Is it a platform? Is it a TV show? Is it less?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I've done a TV, and I've done well, as you know, I've published many books, and so there isn't really one plan. I mean, we are growing our company in London. We have opened a couple of extra delis recently, so that's been keeping me busy. There's more books coming, so there's one coming this year, and then I'm taking a year break, and then there's another one coming in the year after that. So the test kitchen is really very, very busy. There's more people working there. We've done a YouTube channel. There's a bunch of activities that we're planning to do in the next few years. So
I want to buy your packaged condiments.
Yeah.
Yes, that will be available.
We'll definitely do that.
Can I ask you one more question? As a very traveled and learned man, when you're going to take your kids and go on vacation somewhere, where do you like to go?
Okay. Well, that's good. So we've just come back from Venice, and they've never been there, and we've had the most wonderful time. Before we went to Venice, we were in the north of the city in the region of Friuli, which is north and east in Italy, and it was absolutely wonderful. We had some friends there, and we went to see some cheese production. It was fascinating. So they made mozzarellas and burratas and ricottas and slightly more mature cheeses, and it was just such a great experience to show them this culture of cheese making and wine making, which is also very big there. So yeah, I try to involve a little bit of food because that's not their agenda, it's mine, but they have to follow, and sometimes they enjoy it too.
All right. Well, you're going to be speaking. It's Temporal Israel. It's Voices 2022. The event will be May 5th. It's at 7:00. You're going to be hosted by our friend and chef, David Fima, who, when you're here, that would be another great place to visit in downtown Minneapolis. He's Moroccan, and he has a tagine that's crazy. And he still is making sourdough with his mom's original sourdough starter.
Amazing.
That she brought over from Morocco. Yeah.
Wow.
So May 5th, 7 p.m. Is that
allowed on the airplane?
I think he must have smuggled it. But we won't tell.
We'll put a link to ticket on our show page, and Steph's going to write up something that you guys can look for. It's really been a pleasure. I can't wait to see you, and thanks for spending the time with us. It's been really great.
It was a lovely talk. Thank you.
Okay, we'll see you soon.
Take care.
Take care.